The Birmingham bathing cult was an offshoot of a Christian church, based in Birmingham, England, that committed serious sexual offenses against children for over 20 years. Its leader Michael O'Luernby gave children holy baths as cover for the abuse and was jailed for 34 years. Cult Michael O'Luernby led a splinter group of the Cherubim and Seraphim Church at a house in Birmingham, England from 1989. It had approximately 40 members. He branded himself as a prophet and, according to police, had such a hold over the congregation that anything he said was taken as read. Several members who were sexually abused by O'Luernby called their group a cult with a controlling leader. Crimes: Michael O'Luernby sexually abused children for over 20 years starting in 1989, in Birmingham and London. His known victims were 6 girls and a boy, some of whom he continued abusing as adults. His youngest victim was age 8. Police believe there may be other victims. He perpetrated the crimes while giving the children spiritual baths in an upstairs bathroom, sometimes with the assistance of his wife. The victims were either naked or wearing only a red sash. The abuse included forcing children to drink perfume, sexual assault during a bath, and rape afterwards. He perpetrated rape at least 88 times. He controlled his young victims with frightening beliefs, such as threats that a child would become a witch or fail school exams if she resisted his abuse. He rationalized his crimes as God's instructions and as cleansing rituals to protect against evil spirits. According to the Crown Prosecution Service, because of the influence and authority the defendants held, victims honestly believe their actions were on God's behalf. When eventually confronted by a victim's relative, he blamed the devil for forcing him to commit the crimes. He described himself as an animal and said, "Everything was my fault." Concealment: when the abuse caused 4 girls to become pregnant, their pregnancies were forcibly terminated, either by booking the girls into abortion clinics under false names or with a drug administered by Michael O'Luernby. As a pharmacist, Michael O'Luernby was able to access abortifacient medicines himself. 3 victims were given multiple abortions, with one receiving 5 or 6 abortions when she was still in secondary school. O'Luernby's wife, Juliana, arranged some of the abortions. Impact on victims: police described the impact on their victims, both physically and mentally, as massive. One victim said the terrible crimes affected everyone's lives. A victim said, "Mr. O'Luernby took my innocence, my youth and my purity as a child," while another used to eat soap until I was physically sick so I could get rid of this man's mark on me inside and out. The abuse caused a girl to question if my life was worth living. The NSPCC said, behind the facade of trust and respect, Michael O'Luernby used fear and manipulation to subject children to unthinkable abuse, and his wife Juliana contributed to the trauma inflicted on these children. Arrest: the O'Luernbys were eventually caught after a victim reported the crimes to police. In May 2018, Michael O'Luernby was arrested in Birmingham Airport when attempting to travel to his native Nigeria, shortly after a victim confronted him. Police said he had been continuing to work as a pastor until then. Trial: Michael O'Luernby faced 32 charges, all of which he denied. He and his wife went on trial for 9 weeks, ending in January 2020. And he was convicted on 24 charges, with the jury unable to decide on a further 6. Media restrictions: during the trial, the media was prohibited from reporting on the court proceedings or on the crimes. These could only be reported after the judge lifted the legal restrictions on the 14th of January 2020, when the Crown Prosecution Service announced it would not seek a retrial. Convictions: on January 10, 2020, the 2 defendants were each convicted of multiple child sexual offenses. Michael O'Luernby's 24 convictions included 15 counts of rape. All three of his wife's convictions were for aiding and abetting rape by organizing concealment abortions. Georgina Hewins of the Crown Prosecution Service said, "This case involves the serious and sustained sexual abuse of vulnerable young children by a religious leader. The young age of the victims greatly increases the seriousness of the offenses." She praised the victims' great courage which enabled the abusers' despicable and lawless behavior to be known. Detective Inspector Dave Sprusson of West Midlands Police said, "These were sickening crimes committed against children who had put their trust in Oluwarambi and looked up to him. I hope his conviction offers some closure to the victims, and I would like to thank them for their bravery throughout the trial." Sentences on the 6th of March 2020, Michael Oluwarambi and his wife Juliana were jailed for 34 years and 11 years respectively. Judge Sarah Buckingham called Oluwarambi arrogant, selfish, and vain. Sentencing, she said, "The children feared you and this enabled you to continue your grip. Your offending has had an extreme and severe impact on all of your complainants. In my judgment, your offending must be one of the worst cases of sexual abuse of multiple children to come before the courts." See also Kidwelly sex cult. References